Welcome to the ADHD Creative Club podcast, the place for neurodivergent creative entrepreneurs and freelancers to learn new ways of navigating the ever-turbulent world of life and business. Hi there, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I've got another special guest, and this is Maddy Shine. She is an SEO, web design, marketing, and all things entrepreneurship expert. And as always, she also has ADHD. So I can't wait to have a chat. So Maddy, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
To be here. This is very exciting. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all right. No problem at all. So firstly, I just wanted to kind of touch on a little bit about your background. Doing a bit of research kind of on your website and stuff. I've seen you've kind of had a little bit of an interesting ADHD style path where you've done a few different things. So how did you end up kind of doing what you're doing really? And how has ADHD run alongside that for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have been running my business for 13 years. Basically, I've been an entrepreneur for 13 years, and the business has definitely had a kind of a very twisting journey. Looking back, I don't really know how I didn't see I had ADHD sooner. But anyway, here we are. So I started my business because way back in 2010, I was made redundant from my marketing day job. And there was a recession on, that no one was hiring, kind of marketing mid-level manager, which is what I was doing. And I had been doing various side hustles ever since I was at school, where I had learnt to code websites. I'd learnt to code HTML. So this is like way back in the 90s. And so I thought, well, why can't I make something of that? Well, I had no money apart from my redundancy check. So, which wasn't small, but it wasn't big either. It wasn't one of those golden ones, right? So I went and worked as a temp, and then I went traveling. So I topped up the pot, and then I went off traveling. And then I thought, oh my God, I have never done the traveling thing before. And so I went to India for 6 months. Back then it was super easy just to get a 6-month tourist visa. And I was like, my God, I'm never going home. This is absolutely amazing. How do I make this happen? And so then I was like, well, all those side hustles, they can add up to something, can't they? So this is how I basically started exploring that, doing the freelancing thing. I started blogging for bloggers, or I'd started doing SEO bits and pieces, all this self-taught stuff. And of course, bringing in my marketing expertise from my original day job. And so when I started my business, like kind of properly in 2012, if you like, I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really have any savings. I just sort of dived in and was like, well, lots of other people do this, don't they? I'm sure this will work out.
Sounds familiar.
Exactly, right. So I was like, yeah, we're gonna prep, let's do it. Also, I should probably say is I absorbed all the information I could possibly gather my hands on. And so when I say self-taught, I didn't just like do one course because ADHD. I did all of them. And that continued for quite some years, I won't lie. How do I do it? How do I want to do it? How do I definitely not want to do it? You name a course in it, and I'm pretty sure I will have signed up to it at some point.
Can I jump in there actually?
Do.
How that's a common thing for me as well. My wife finds it hilarious that any item that I have to buy, I research it for about 3 weeks or a month before I even do it. I'm like watching videos all about this new duster or something. And she just finds it ridiculous. She's like, just go and buy it. But I have to know that something's the right thing to do. But as an entrepreneur, that can set you back actually at times. So did you find that you kind of studied too much, or are you glad that you went really deep into it and that kind of gave you the skill set? Like, how did you feel that went?
That's a really good question. So right at the beginning, I didn't know enough to know that the advice that sometimes I was buying wasn't the best advice. So I'm glad that I did those courses, because it did teach me some kind of, it taught me to rely on my intuition more, because I was like, well, that doesn't really apply to how I want to live my life or how I want to run my business. But then just before COVID, even, I was buying lots of courses still then. And I was like, oh, maybe this is the course that will fix all the things that I feel I'm lacking. because of course when we have ADHD we don't trust ourselves as much. And I remember buying some courses and they really were not the right courses whatsoever, and I should definitely not have spent the thousands of pounds that I spent on those courses. And I've only just got over it, if I'm truly honest. Like, it's not some, you know, and you're like, oh my god, that person has my money, and but honestly, I can't build, I can't resentment kind of continue. It's not healthy. So I don't necessarily regret the courses that I signed up to. I just
Mm.
wish that I could have like doubled myself and gone, Maddie, will you please like just stop spending all your profits on the bloody courses and actually like try some more things out. Like,
Mm.
enough. And that whole thing of knowing enough to begin is it's been such a thing for me, because I was like, because I can see it so much when I work with clients as well, whether they're, neurotypical, neurodiverse, whatever. I think that there is a thing with entrepreneurs like, oh, maybe that's the course that will get me sorted. And
Yeah.
it's definitely been a journey, I would say. Yeah.
Mm.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
say there was like a clear, oh, this was definitely the right way.
for sure. And then, if you don't mind me asking, with ADHD, you've had a diagnosis fairly recently, is that right?
Very.
So how did that
Yeah.
kind of come about in terms of just thinking that something was different?
Well, it was COVID. I mean, nothing will teach you a lot about yourself than sitting at home on your own with nowhere to go, nothing to do. I moved in on my own into my own flat in the middle of the first lockdown, so July 2020. I'd never lived on my own before. Obviously, it was lockdown. My business was really taking off because I run an online business, so I did very well in lockdown with the online course bubble. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like here, there, and everywhere online more than ever, and I'm completely exhausted. And then one of my siblings was diagnosed with ADHD. And I said to them, hang on a second, I have all those traits. And they went, yeah, you do. I was like, yeah, this would explain a lot. So because I have ADHD, I then made it my hyperfixation for what was that? So that was Christmas 2020. And I got diagnosed in January. So for that whole time, I mean, you asked me a question about when it came to my assessment in January, I was like, am I faking it because I know so much about the traits? Like, because I could pass an exam on how to pass this exam, but no, because that's not how they assess you. They're like,
Yeah.
what happened when you were a kid? I was like, well, I was always told off for daydreaming, and my anxiety was really internalized. I never trusted my own intuition, and I was constantly changing hobbies and activities, and constantly changing friendship groups and clubs and all that kind of stuff. And then I really kind of went for it. They were like, yeah, we're pretty certain you have ADHD. I was like, oh, there you go. But no, I definitely would say that since actually being formally diagnosed, obviously the world did not end, and and nor did it open up. Like, nothing's really changed. It's just
No.
my partner's like, darling, like, this is not front page news. Like, come on, we all knew this. It's okay. And it's sort of been comforting to me. I feel like I haven't got an imposter syndrome thing about showing up in ADHD spaces, or talking about the fact that I have ADHD, or even the fact that I go off on tangents mid question. And I'm like, I used to be like, oh my God, I didn't give like the most polished answer. Like, and what will they think of me? And then I would be too busy thinking about that. And then I didn't know what was coming out my mouth even more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hell before, I won't lie.
I think going back as well to the assessment, I found that really odd as well, knowing that somebody is talking to you to assess whether you've got it, and the thought of being like, what if I don't have it? Even though you very clearly do, you do. And then you're
Yeah.
overthinking that, and you're like, what are they thinking about me? And then you start overthinking that, and it's like this kind of crazy spiral, isn't it, when
Yeah,
you're getting your assessment?
for sure. I mean, I already think too much about how much eye contact I'm giving, how much I'm touching my hair. Why did I do one of my eyeliners different, one on one eye than the other? Like, there's already that going on anyway. And then there's like, oh, what will the takeaways be from that one sentence I just said? Okay, and how about that sentence? And now that sentence, and then you're like, oh my God, Maddy, just shut up. Like, and then you're like, but I
Yeah,
can't,
yeah.
it's just how my brain is, it's fine.
Exactly. So were there any, like when you got your diagnosis, were there any coping mechanisms, I guess, or little things that you did personally that kind of changed the way you work perhaps, or?
Yeah, so the coping mechanisms definitely started way before I got my formal diagnosis. So pretty much about 2 years ago now, I would say, because obviously I was on the waiting list for quite some time, as per. And so I had some time to look into, well, I can't just continue beating myself up. That's not the way forward here. So what can I do? So one of the big things, I know it's going to sound super cliche, is breathing. Like it's breathing is so like it really helps center me. Also, the music I listen to. So it very much has to be the same track. Like I've tried to mix it up. I can't listen to the radio because I don't know what's next, you know? Like I just so I have like I have one particular ASMR channel for when I want to switch off and go to sleep. And I have one particular playlist. Like even today I have a playlist to listen to before I get onto a podcast and like interviewed like this, and I'll have another one to calm me down. I really have to find things that work with my energy because
Mm.
otherwise I'm completely all over the place, even more so. And so I would definitely say that those are two things, like centering myself and also talking about it. I thought that I had to hold on to all these things that were going through my brain. I was like, they're for me to sort out. All the tabs, I had to close them myself and just like sharing with my partner or telling my ADHD friends or going to, a trusted business buddy or whatever, just sending them a voice note going, my brain's doing this and actually sharing that because I think that part of the ADHD for me, how it showed up for me was very much internalized like obsession, like must fix it, must fix myself. No one can know my shame. I have a dopamine menu on my kitchen cabinet. So yeah, you probably know what that is. So I have starters, mains, sides, and puddings, and so like different things that will take different amounts of time. I never look at it, but it's really fun making new ones every so often, and then putting it on my kitchen wall, and then that's kind of part of the process.
So what kind of things do you have on there then?
Yeah, sure. I've joined Borrow My Doggy. I don't know whether you know Borrow My Doggy. So it's basically where you walk strangers' dogs.
Yeah, great.
So I now have a thing where basically every other Tuesday, I now go and walk this lovely beagle who lives around the corner from me. And so what I've noticed is very much time with animals is a huge way for me to relax and let my brain sort of fizz out. So I've got a rescue cat who's sitting just off screen here, spread across my desk. Um, and before, like last year, I was volunteering in a rescue cat centre every Friday. So that was really great for my brain, get away from the screen. And basically, that's what's on the dopamine menu. It's like go and find an animal and like go and like, and so like very often in the pub, I will be cuddling people's dogs. Don't worry, they know. I, because it's just like such a great way for me to be like, obviously talk to people, but like talking is not the main subject, like the dog is. And, people always love to talk about their animals, don't they? So
Mm.
yeah, I'm a huge animal fan. So yeah, that's a really helpful thing for me.
And what would you recommend to anybody else that we would be looking to, perhaps they hadn't done that before? So
Yeah.
just finding small things, from small to big things that give you
Yeah.
those.
So basically, on my starter menu is 15-minute activities. So allowing yourself to play that stupid game on your phone, not berating yourself for like, oh God, it's been 3 hours and I'm still sat on the sofa. It's dancing around to your favorite track that you always listen to, and it doesn't matter because it's your life. It's little things like that. But then like the bigger ones are like go and do an actual workout. So last year I bought a boxing machine and it's on my hallway wall behind me. And it's so good to do that. It's really, really good to have that clear mind. Obviously, everyone knows exercise is good, but I hate exercise like with an absolute passion. Like I really build it up in my head. So any kind of form of exercise, and you can do like, YouTube video or whatever, they're really helpful because they're timed. Um, and then puddings are like the real indulgences. So it can be going to the pub, which I absolutely love to do. I live in a brilliant part of South London where there's some excellent local pubs and brilliant community. And something that I'm really, really passionate about is going and speaking to people in person to get that dopamine hit as well, and talking about nonsense.
Yeah. So
Because
that's actually a thing that you've got,
yeah,
isn't it? It's like a
yeah,
community that you've
yeah,
set up. So can you tell us a bit more about that? That sounds really
yeah,
great.
absolutely. So I launched Pints and Purpose just over a year ago, about 18 months ago. And it's a monthly meetup for women and non-binary entrepreneurs and freelancers in local pubs. Yeah, it's called Pints and Purpose, and I absolutely love it. It's so much fun because, first of all, from a feminist perspective, getting women in the pub away from doing maybe the kids' bedtime, not sitting there like, oh, let's have a glass of wine. Obviously, wine drinkers are welcome, as are alcohol free. But it's like this whole idea of just like getting down the pub in a gang of us. And I really noticed that coming out of COVID, we have so much that we do in the home, whether it's work as well as home stuff. Like, where's that other space? If we don't belong
Mm,
to a gym or some other club, where's that other space? And so it was something that was really important to me. And now we have sellout events, and I'm really proud of that. And it's
that's
really,
great.
really, really good community. Yeah, I'm really proud.
So obviously you touched on it there. So you very much kind of help female entrepreneurs with business, with SEO and web design and things like that.
Yeah.
What are the kind of biggest mistakes that people tend to make with their websites, for example, or their SEO? Like when people come to you, what do they mainly kind of suffer with in
Oh my
that
goodness.
regard?
Well, particularly for all the creatives listening. So I'm talking everyone who's got beautiful images. Your beautiful, beautiful images. Your beautiful images do not speak for themselves, I'm afraid, gang. I'm really sorry. You need to have some text on your website. I work with a lot of photographers over the years, and I constantly see big, beautiful images, however they're presented, but you're not telling the stories with the images. I want to read the stories. What happened on that shoot? Why did that client book you? Why did you particularly love on that shoot? What did you love about that day? You know, particularly with AI coming into all of our lives, whether we like it or not, we have to remember to add that flavor. And so that is the number one thing that I would say. Tell the story. So whether it's a sales page where you're sharing the information about your service, or whether it's your blog that may be long abandoned, it's not too late. You can pick it up again and yeah, and share those stories of those projects that you love to work on, and
Mm.
also the projects that bring in the money, because they aren't necessarily the same thing, you know?
Yeah, that is very true. Very true. I think something that I've learned over kind of a decade or so of running my business is like, again, I was all about the images, and that's why I got into video and film, was just to make really nice looking stuff. And I didn't really think about why I was actually making it. And I think the more I learned about how people kind of come onto a website and clients what they actually value, there were times when we'd be like, yeah, but it's really, isn't it really lovely what we've made for you? And they're like, yeah, it's great, but I want the hits and the customers and the clients. I think as creatives,
Yeah.
it's like you say, it's so easy to just go down the route of like, this is really beautiful. But yeah, I think that's really valid. And you've got to think about what that person is doing on your site. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
the reason they've probably been attracted to get to your site by your lovely images, but now it's the time to actually sell them, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. This the other thing that I always see is that creatives often come to me incredibly resentful that they have to have a website at all. So that there's obviously there's some resistance there, and like, oh God, can I just stick up the images and hope for the best? If
Mm,
you are going to have a website with very little text on it, then you actually have to work much, much harder to bring in the bookings, because it's much more focused on you and you getting the press features, you beating, in inverted commas, the Instagram algorithm,
mm,
wherever you might be posting your work. And so actually, I would say SEO is actually the easiest way to be more visible. Obviously, I would say that, but I've worked with quite a few businesses now. And I do think that when it comes to creatives, then you're like, oh, but my talent is in making the images or making the videos rather than the words. Well, you are allowed to use AI, like, whatever the ethical argument might be, you can still do a brain dump and go, hey, Chatty, please can you make this into a cohesive blog, and then you're like, no, that doesn't sound like me at all, and rewrite it. Like that's
Mm.
allowed. If
Yeah.
writing is difficult for you, and I think that should be addressed, because so many people come to me like that, and they're like, I really don't feel confident writing, and I get it.
Okay, quick pause, and I mean quick, because I know your ADHD brain is already wondering what's for dinner. If you're vibing with this conversation, imagine having a whole community of creatives who also actually get it. People who understand why you have 47 browser tabs open, why you started 3 businesses last month, and why just make a list is the worst advice ever. That's exactly what I'm trying to build at the ADHD Creative Club. Head to the ADHDcreative.club right now, yes, right now before you forget, and sign up for tips, tricks, and real talk on surviving as a neurodivergent creative entrepreneur. The ADHDcreative.club. I'll put the link in the show notes because, let's be honest, you're not writing that down. So, all right, back to the conversation.
No.
I think as well for people with ADHD, especially with our creatives, so not only have they're very visual people, but they're also like, I have to do what? How many? Where do I start? What do I do? Like they'll overthink it and whatever. And then they probably get overwhelmed with all of the different tasks that they kind of have to do when they're building a website. So are there any website templates or softwares that you recommend? And also, what are the kind of like the first 3 things, I guess, that maybe you should have on your website if you're just starting to go, right, all I've got is a portfolio. Like, how do I make this good?
So the first piece of software that I definitely recommend is Keyword Everywhere. So it's a nice low budget tool. Basically, you can check what people are searching to find someone like you, and it will tell you approximately how many people a month in your country are searching for that particular phrase. So it might be London wedding photographer, or it might be South London wedding photographer, or whatever it is, and you can see what the different variations might be. Keywords Everywhere, absolutely brilliant tool. And the reason I recommend it is not just because it's great, but also because it's cheap, which is what we like. And then for actually checking what's working on Google Search Console, it's free. It's where you give Google a map of your website, which funnily enough is called a sitemap. And basically you have to tell Google to come and check your website. Google doesn't know about you otherwise. And you might have to do that on a fairly regular basis until you are so busy then updating your website. And then Google's like, oh, look at that website. It's so helpful. Let's go and check that. So Google Search Console, absolutely brilliant. And then you can also check it on a monthly basis. Don't check it more often than that. You'll drive yourself nuts. But on a monthly basis, you can see what people are Googling and then clicking on your website. So everyone who's finding you through organic SEO, absolutely brilliant. Another tool would be Google Business. I would definitely say if you deliver in-person services, definitely get your business on the map. Set up a free profile. You can hide your home address if you're based at home, and like most of us are, and you can collect reviews that way, which again boosts your SEO. So those are 3 tools. And then the 4th one I was going to say would be Yoast. So for anyone who has a WordPress website, then Yoast is brilliant. There's a free version and a paid version. The free version is absolutely great, particularly if you're just starting out. It helps you get the keywords that you've got from Keywords Everywhere and make sure that you put them in the right places on your website. It's really good. Recommend.
Great. Fantastic. So obviously now, like running your own business and kind of, being someone with a neurodiversity, you've touched on a few different hacks and things for kind of music and things like that. Obviously there's a lot of, do you have anyone that works with you, or are you complete like solopreneur? And if so, like how do you keep all your tasks in one place?
Oh my
God. That's something I struggle with.
Isn't that like, so I sometimes think that if there was a business talking about productivity and which software to use, like I would rake it in, because if you name some productivity software or task management software, I've tried it. I've recently gone back to my tried and trusted Asana, or Asana, however you pronounce it. And I manage all my projects in there, whether they're just for me or whether they're client projects, with varying degrees of success, because obviously the clients are their own people and they have their own way of communicating as well. But I try and contain it in there. But I also, of course, my notes app is absolute chaos. And I try once a week, I try and kind of go in and like update Asana with like, obviously there's like duplicate and like adding to ideas and stuff. But the other thing is like, because it is just me, I do have contractors that I work with, and I've had coaches over the years, but at the moment I don't have a coach. Um, I basically have like almost wish lists, and sometimes they actually call wish lists in my notes. So, for example, at some point, Maddy Shine, one of my brands, Maddy Shine, is going to rebrand, and I'm going to redo the website. I do not currently have the capacity for that right now. I'm going through some major family stuff, and I just need to crack on with bringing in the money whilst I have the hours, and then I can, have my attention elsewhere. But with the rebrand thing, I've got a note, and I've honestly, it's like now a Google Doc. I'm pretty sure there's about 3 different Google Docs floating around where I'm dumping the notes, and I'm not giving myself a hard time about that, because when the time is right, and it's not yet, then I will go and find those docs. And if I don't, then it's not the end of the world. I'm not saying there's like a magic wand as to how I manage my tasks, but something I will share is that a client of mine the other day said to me, "Maddy, you are so efficient, it scares me sometimes." And I laughed and I said, "I'm really sorry to scare you, but for me, it's because of my ADHD. I am so worried about coming across as incompetent that I've clearly gone too far the other way, because all my life I have basically berated myself for the mistakes I've made. These mistakes were probably quite minuscule. Sometimes they were quite big, don't get me wrong, but I've made them because I am but a human being." And I think that I have really, really tried to be like, I can never be incompetent, because if I'm incompetent in any way, shape, or form, my world will end, everything will collapse around me, and it's already hanging on by some kind of hairline, balance. But actually, maybe then I just go, do you know what? Did I get enough sleep last night? Probably not. And maybe it's okay that I just go and sit on the sofa for a little bit and go and call someone, instead of going, no, I'm going to do these 10 more emails, and I need the loo, and I'm going to make more mistakes as a result of it. So that's just an insight there into my day.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. I actually use Notion rather than Asana. I haven't used Asana, but when I've got a new thing, I have these sections there, and I just dump like articles, conversations with LLMs or chatbots or whatever. I kind of dump them all in there, and then I can go in at a later date. I think that's such a good way to manage your ADHD and really run with those hyper-focus moments, because that's one of the things that we are lucky to have. Like, we can really go deep on a subject. When we really love something, when I started doing film, I was just obsessed with like learning about lighting and cameras, and same, I think, maybe with you with marketing. And it's like, you just go so deep into it, and that's great. But don't lose all of that information. Just keep that in a place that you can come back to, that it's there. And not being too hard on yourself, I think, is a thing. How does RSD affect you in your business? Have you got any coping mechanisms that you've discovered for that?
Oh my God, I am open to all suggestions on how to cope with RSD. Like, it was just like, I mean, looking back, I've always been this like super sensitive person, super sensitive friend, daughter, sister, whatever. But when it comes to running your own business, my God, that really is putting your face like close to the fire, isn't it? And so, I've run so many online courses. I had hosted a membership for a while. But the RSD that comes from even like the way that people phrase things, like particularly written, people just they're not like, but don't worry, like this isn't, you can't detect tone of voice so well in the written format. So not only that, and people have all sorts of reasons for cancelling the course or leaving the membership or whatever, but it still hurts so much. And I was like, my God, what's the matter with me? But obviously now I know. And with clients now, because I basically focus on done for you now, but with SEO and web design. And I really have to have a separate document to the contract called Managing Your Expectations, which is basically where I lay out how I wish to be communicated with and how I will communicate. It's like we're all human beings. We want to enjoy this project. Part of me enjoying this project is for us to speak to each other in a friendly way. If I was still back in my corporate world, then I'd be like, Maddy, you need to be a bit more professional. Well, I've got blue hair and I wear feminist earrings and I wear very bright makeup. Like, what do you want from me? I don't think that I'd like to think that I don't give people the opportunity to give me rejection sensitivity dysphoria anymore. But of course, it pops up its really ugly head, but all the time. And the way that I really cope with it is I tell people, I go, oh, that stung a bit actually. Is everything okay with you? And they're like, oh, sorry, Maddy, I'm in between tasks right now. And that's why I just sped off a really quick reply. And I'm like, thanks. I just want to check that I haven't personally done anything bad here. And they go,
Yeah.
oh, Maddy, we love you, or something equally nice. Obviously, some clients aren't like that. And they're like, yeah, what do you want? And I'm just like, well, could you not like speak to me because I'm like that? Because I feel like I'm being told off by a parent sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that some aspects you just got to crack on and do the work.
Yeah.
But it is so hard, isn't it? With being a creative, you're like, here's something pretty that I made. And they're like, yeah, it's all right. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
where's the essay of love that I was expecting? And where's the
Yeah.
poems, like about how beautiful this thing is?
I've actually in regards to like the creating the art itself, I learned that very quickly. Even just showing it to my partner, like when I was first starting, I was getting super excited about these quite rubbish videos that I was making. I look back on them now and I'm like, oh my God, that was awful. And then I would call my wife in and just be like, what do you think of this? And she'd be like, oh yeah, it's nice. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? I've just spent like days trying to make this look good. And or even she'd get wise to it and say, oh no, it's really good. And then I'd be like, I can tell that you don't really think that. So and it's the same with and it's the same with clients as well. But I think just doing that over and over again in regards to like with your process, you do get hardened to it over time. I've found that I have, where I know now that I'm thinking about the client and what they're wanting from this, and you have to separate yourself from the art, from the result. And there are times when you're like, this shot is really beautiful. I had this with one of our editors the other day. He was editing and he was like, oh, I just love this shot, the way the water's like glistening somewhere. And I'm like, dude, the client doesn't want this in. And I agree that it just gets to the point quicker. So we've got to lose it. And he was like really devastated. But it's one of those things. And you've got to remember, again, that no one cares as much as you think they do. And that's another thing, I think. And it's very hard. It's very hard because the reason we end up ADHD as a kind of like nice people, I guess, is because we do care what people think and we're trying to please people. But most of the time people worry about their own stuff.
Yeah, honestly, a wise man once told me many years ago, back in India days, he said to me, 2% of people love you no matter what you do. And 2% of people hate you no matter what you do. And the other 96% aren't thinking about you at all, however much you might want them to. And I can see this, like, not just like, with kind of our kind of creative businesses, but like you can see it in like, famous people where they're like, give me more. And you're like, I totally, I can relate to this. Like when is enough attention and validation for our work, for the thing that we are slaving away on night and day, and we never stop thinking about it. Even if when we're like pretending like we're not thinking about it, we're like, oh, actually, I feel really inspired, like on a beach when I'm definitely not supposed to be thinking about my work or something,
Yeah.
But I think that also that's why community is really important. I should say that community is a massive coping mechanism for me. So whether it is going off to let off steam down the pub and cuddling dogs, or whether it's hanging out with Pints and Purpose, or whether it's speaking to my Instagram buddies, we all have them, where we're able to send those voice notes and be like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, bloody bitch. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can carry on with my day now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really valid. And it's been great, actually, again, like just on the podcast, meeting people that are going through the same thing that I am, and hopefully the listeners as well. And everyone is dealing with these things. And so it's really helping me, like talking to people like yourself. So, and learning you're not alone just gives you confidence as well, I think, and just kind of gets you out there. So what's next for you then? So you've you've obviously got a lot going on anyway, but like, you know, what's the next thing that you're moving on to?
So at the moment, I am really focusing on trying to create a better, I mean, work-life balance sounds cliche, but I am. That's the thing that I'm working on. And so I have just spent a couple of days at the office helping my sister take care of one of her kids because her childminder's off. And I'm really, really glad that I was able to do that. It's not a big thing, but it's something that I can do to help my family. You know, I said that we're going through a massive thing with my dad right now. And so being able to take some time out and also to take care of myself in amongst that, because obviously it's huge. You know, my mental health is such a project to me. And so that is really important to me to prioritize. So basically working on the projects with the clients, loving doing the SEO, like, yeah, great. Thanks for signing off the work. Let's do the next thing. Woohoo. It's so, it's so nice because they trust me. And that does feel really good. For all my jokes about RSD, it does feel really good. And then obviously the lovely Pints and Purpose community. I'm just about to start planning the summer. How can I create more in-person events whilst also taking care of my responsibilities and also my capacity? It's really important to me. Yeah.
Yeah, here, I think, like, you know, it's again something that a lot of people do chase that I don't know, the money, I guess. Like they start their own business and they're desperate to kind of get to the next thing. And I think the two big things are enjoying the journey,
Yeah.
but also valuing your own time as well. And there's so many gurus online that are just like, this is how you make $1 million in 10 minutes. And actually, you know, actually just having your own time and being able to choose when you have a day off to help your sister, for example, like is like more valuable than a lot of people have. And
absolutely. I've done the multi-six-figure business thing in lockdown and maybe it'll happen again. But right now, I think what's important is that I'm not burning out and that I'm taking care of myself. And also, not to sound like big-headed about it, but that I'm role modeling that. You know, I've been doing this business thing a long time. I want to actually be putting what I've been learning and studying and hyper-focusing on all that time into practice as I go and not being like, oh my God, look, I'm going to sell a course in how I brought back my mental health for £99, you know, worth £2,500 though. Don't forget with the bonuses.
yeah,
No, I mean, you know, I joke, but it's true, right? That's what people are doing. And I think that it's so important for us to, I mean, what on earth are we doing this entrepreneur thing for if it's not to enjoy ourselves? Like, what
yeah.
are we doing? You know?
And you know, everyone listening to this again, you know, hopefully everyone you're a freelancer, you're a creative agency owner or whatever that may be, but most of these people either want to or they are working for themselves. And like there's something so empowering about that. It also really suits our brains to be our own bosses. And anytime we have to kind of go into someone else's regime, as it were, like it can be challenging. And the fact we have all this control, I think, is super powerful. Is there one piece of magic that you can leave us with today that perhaps has helped you, or a piece of advice you've had, or something that's up your sleeve?
Yes. Be kind to yourself. Particularly maybe as British people, we're like, oh, self-deprecating jokes. Oh, let's be harsh to ourselves. Like, you know, it's all part of our culture. I don't know about you, but as an ADHD person, I massively internalize that stuff and I believe it to be true. And I believe it to be the only thing that's true. But I think that what's important is like that being kind to yourself, also finding people who are kind to you. Because again, it's like, oh, let's find people who back up what we believe about ourselves. And whether that's in work or whether that's not, it's so important to my creativity and also to my learning to take care of my ADHD better.
Fantastic. And where can people find you online?
Yeah.
Yeah, where if they want to get in touch, like, and
Yeah,
work with you?
absolutely. So I've got 3 different websites and 3 different Instagram accounts. You can find me on all of them. So it's Maddy Shine. Just Google Maddy Shine, you'll find all the links. Pints and Purpose is my lovely community. So if you're South London based and you're a woman or a non-binary person, please get in touch with me. And I've got Sassy and Soft, which is my SEO and web agency. So again, come and find me on Instagram, my website, wherever you like.
That's fantastic. Maddy, it's been an absolute pleasure. But thank you so much for all your insight. It's been really valuable. And hopefully we'll have you on again soon at some point. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for hanging out today. Look, if you related to any of this, the struggles, the wins, the holy cow, that's me moments, you need to be part of the ADHD Creative Club. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement of neurodivergent creatives who are figuring this stuff out together. Head to theadhdcreative.club and sign up for tips, strategies, and real talk on surviving and thriving as a creative entrepreneur with ADHD. I'm Dave Neal, and remember, every single person you heard on this podcast felt exactly the same as you at some point. Lost, overwhelmed, wondering if they could make it work, and now look at them. Now it's your turn. See you in the next episode. Cheers.